Today's story is about one of America's most famous preachers whose contributions to the civil rights movement often go overlooked. Today's story is about the man with the $1 million voice, Minister C.L. Franklin. Before we get started in today's video, just leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and push that notification bell to stay up to date. Now without further ado, let's cue that intro. Clarence LaVon Walker was born on January 22, 1915 in Rural, Mississippi to sharecroppers Willie and Rachel Walker. His father was drafted in the military during World War I, and when he returned home in 1919, he would abandon the family when Clarence was only 4 years old. That following year, his mother would remarry a man named Henry Franklin, whose surname the family would take. Franklin, he grew up in poverty, and at this time, education for blacks was very poor. They was confined to a single room in a church and was taught by teachers who mostly didn't have a high school diploma. In the South, he faced a lot of racist hostility. Franklin's family spent most of their time working on the farm and going to church. So during his spare time, he found an interest in the blues, and he would listen to artists such as Blind Lemon Jefferson and Roosevelt Sykes. Franklin's attitude towards music was unlike anyone else who had the similar upbringing. Most of church goers believed that all music other than gospel was music of the devil. At the age of 10, Franklin, he would be baptized, and it was then that he began to gain an interest in preaching. Now, preaching was in his blood. His grandfather, Elijah J. Pittman, was an ex-slave that turned into a preacher. He would go ahead and follow his calling at the age of 16, and he would begin working for the Black Itinerant Preaching Circuit. Franklin, he would preach in a lot of cities around Mississippi, including Cleveland, Clarksdale, and Greenville. Franklin, he would eventually settle in Memphis, and he would attend Lemoyne College. During his college years, he was introduced to a more contemporary approach to biblical studies, one of which he labels as evangelical and the other as historical. During his stay in Memphis, he developed his famous preaching style, which earned him enough traction to have his own weekly radio program for weekly summers. Franklin, he would stay in Memphis for 3 years before going to Buffalo, New York. In 1946, he would relocate to Detroit, Michigan to become the new minister at the New Bethel Baptist Church. During his tenure in Detroit, his fame would skyrocket, earning him the moniker the $1 Million Voice. While remaining in the pulpit of his church, he would travel all across the United States to spread his message. Franklin, he was the first preacher to join the gospel tour in 1953. He even formed his own organization titled C.L. Franklin's Gospel Carving. Carla Ward and the teenage Aretha Franklin was among the artists in this group. Franklin would join the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s and also made significant strides by establishing a food ministry, providing financial and legal assistance to the homeless, and establishing a jail ministry. He also fought to eliminate discrimination against the Black United Auto Workers in Detroit. Now, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a personal friend and supporter of Franklin. And in June of 1963, Franklin had joined King in his freedom march down Woodward Avenue. Minister Franklin, he was not only a remarkable preacher, but he was also a great singer. He would record 76 albums of gospel songs and sermons. Minister Franklin was well known in the gospel circles, and he would even organize parties where legends such as Ray Charles, Sam Cooke, B.B. King, Mahalia Jackson, among many others, came through to perform. Franklin married his first wife, Aline Gaines, on October 16, 1934. The marriage would end in 1936. Later on that year, Franklin, he would marry again on June 3rd, 1936 to Barbara Seggers. Now Barbara, she was an amazing pianist and she was also a great singer. The couple, they will have 4 children together: Irma, Cecile, Aretha, and Carolyn. Barbara, going into the marriage, she already had a kid prior to a relationship named Vaughn, and when the couple were married, CL, he will adopt Vaughn and raise him as his own. Minister Franklin and Barbara will separate in 1948 and never get divorced. She will take Vaughn and move to Buffalo, New York with her mother. Now Barbara, she allowed her other 4 children to stay with their father because he was already financially secure. While in Buffalo, she had to work by giving private piano lessons, and eventually she would land a job as a nurse aide, and that would be the beginning of her getting back on her feet. And it was enough for her to get ready to sing for the rest of her children. But suddenly, she would pass from a heart attack at the age of 34. Minister Franklin, he didn't attend her funeral. Now, it's commonly stated that she didn't visit her children during this time, but that is false. She did visit them. She visited them over the Christmas holidays, and the children, they would often go to Buffalo, New York during the summer. Minister Franklin had fathered a kid outside of his marriage with a woman from his congregation who was only 12 years old. Shortly after, he would move his family to Detroit. It's also stated that Minister Franklin was known to abuse alcohol, sex, and become physically abusive at times. Following his divorce from his wife, Franklin, he began dating singer Carla Ward. It's also alleged that Franklin was abusive to Ward. Now, Aretha Franklin, she would have her first kid at a very early age, between the age of 12 and 13. Now, it's widely assumed that Minister Franklin is the father of Aretha's firstborn, and it's well known that Aretha has always been tight-lipped regarding the true identities of her first 2 children's fathers. Many people close to the family had already alleged to knowing, but they didn't do nothing. Now, if any of this is true, everyone who was close to Aretha, they failed her. On June 10th, 1979, Minister Franklin, he was shot twice at point-blank range while attempting to prevent a break-in. After 6 months, he was returned home under the care of his daughters, Irma and Carolyn, as well as a 24-hour nurse. Franklin, he will stay in a coma for the next 5 years until his death on July 27th, 1984, at the age of 69. Now, C.L. Franklin, his greatest legacy, aside from his personal success, is undoubtedly his daughters. Many gospel singers and preachers look to Franklin for inspiration as well as a mentor and key influence.